We are now at John's place. It seems that John was working out until somebody calls him. It ends up being his dad. Upon answering the call, his dad asks him how everything is going. You know, dad stuff. However, he also warns him to be careful since a group called Amber is causing trouble around his area. His dad really means it and tells John not to do anything stupid. I wonder what he means by that. The call ends faster than expected since John's dad's editor is calling him. At the Wellston dormitories, we see Sarah reading Unordinary, the book John lent her. She closes it and leaves it on the bed before heading out for a walk. When she's about to leave, she meets Elaine. Elaine cheerfully offers her a glass of orange juice made with fruit from her family's farm. Sarah accepts the offer, but says she'll have it later since she's about to leave. Sarah walks down the street thinking about the book's contents. It's a story about a man who protects a world full of cripples. How did someone come up with that premise? She wonders. She thinks John's father wrote the book to share his idea of a world where John could stand as everyone's equal. She recognizes that many people agree with that vision. That's why so many self-proclaimed heroes appeared, trying to emulate the hero of the book. It's no surprise the authorities banned the book since it goes against the structure of the current society. They feared how it inspired many high tiers to take action after reading it. But the world of the book and the real world share something in common. Only strong people have the power to influence reality. Back in Sarah's bedroom, we see Elaine leaving a glass of orange juice on Sarah's desk. As she turns to leave, she notices the book resting on the bed. Sarah returns from her walk and notices the orange juice on her table. She also notices the book on her bed and realizes she really messed up. On the other side of the bedroom, Elaine is researching the book. She finds a wiki about it and learns that the book is the reason so many vigilantes and self-proclaimed heroes started to appear. She continues her research and discovers several news articles about those superheroes being murdered. She gets frustrated because she doesn't know what to do and is scared that Serafina wants to become a vigilante. Elaine decides to call Arlo. Arlo picks up the phone and Elaine tells him that Serafina is in big trouble. She explains that Sarah has a book called Unordinary and insists it can only mean bad news. Arlo tells her to calm down and stay focused. For now, he says it's better if no one else finds out about this. Back on the rooftop, John is talking to Sarah about his report card. From his attitude, we can infer that he failed almost everything. Sarah tells him not to freak out since there's nothing he can do about it. She then uses the moment to tell John that she cannot give him back the book. John immediately guesses that it must be because Elaine found it. From Sarah's expression, John realizes he's right. He reprimands her for being so careless and reminds her that, even with her ability, she can't rewind this mistake. John asks her what her plan is, and she replies that she'll keep the book for a while so no one can trace it back to him. Sarah tells John not to worry. Since she's the school's ace, she believes they will be lenient with her. John then asks her what she thought about the book. Sarah tells him that its content was absurd. However, she admits that some points are not fully clear to her and asks John for help. John starts by saying that he admires the hero of Unordinary because he listened to others and saw value in everyone. He continues, explaining that the core idea is that even the weakest people can have amazing ideas and they should be protected. With a proud light in his eyes, he says that if he were qualified, he would join the people trying to make that vision a reality. Sarah gazes at him and apologizes for the book, saying she didn't know it meant so much to him. John tells her it's okay since he has read it many times and needed a break from it anyway. In the library of the school, we find Blake reading a book. Everything is quiet until someone drops a mountain of books on the table. It's Remy, and she's upset about the number of exams she has to take at the end of the quarter. Blake is surprised. He didn't know Remy came back last night. Remy asks Blake to tell her if anything interesting happened last week. Blake mentions that they won a turf war, and he also adds that Sarah even substituted her as the queen. Blake is about to share something only royals should know. However, Remy interrupts him, saying everyone already knows that Sarah kicked Arlo's butt in the turf war. Remy is relieved that those two finally fought it out. However, she knows it's none of her business, despite Blake saying otherwise. Remy understands that her position as the queen is only because Sarah doesn't want it. She's aware that her level is far below theirs, and trying to stop them would probably get her killed. Blake then asks Remy why she left so suddenly. Remy's attitude changes and pain fills her eyes. She finally reveals she attended a funeral. Her brother was murdered. Meanwhile, we see John in his classroom. He looks really thoughtful. He starts remembering some kids laughing in front of him. A younger John, beaten and bruised, glares at them with fury. A hand extends toward him, offering help. It's the green-haired girl again. Suddenly, the teacher's voice snaps John back to reality. He stands up and collects his grade report, and it's not as bad as he was expecting. Elsewhere, Arlo is walking down one of the school aisles. He's surprised that Sarah managed to get a copy of Unordinary. He wonders if her recent behavior is influenced by the book. Suddenly, John bumps into Arlo, scattering all his papers. Arlo bends down to help him collect them, and the people around start murmuring. But when Arlo raises his voice, everyone goes silent. As Arlo leaves, he tells John to be more careful next time. However, his expression changes as he leaves, revealing that he's actually planning something. Now we find Arlo and Eason in an empty classroom. Eason is wondering why Arlo called for him. Arlo tells him that his expertise is needed and asks if he's able to find information on anyone. Eason asks what exactly Arlo is looking for. Arlo inquires if Eason knows John, who is in his grade. Eason affirms but wonders why Arlo is interested in that cripple. Arlo tells him that John looks suspicious after seeing him a couple of times. He's powerless, completely unaware of his surroundings, and has no respect for hierarchy. However, he got into Wellston and hangs out with Sarah. Arlo thinks those facts don't line up and asks Eason to find his story and what he did to get into Wellston. Eason tries to persuade Arlo to just forget about him. However, Arlo tells him he didn't ask for his opinion. Eason shakes a little and accepts the order. Before Eason leaves, Arlo reminds him to keep his mouth shut this time. Meanwhile, John is walking and notices a paper on the billboard. It's a death pool where students bet on which superhero will die next. This infuriates John, and he tears it off. With the paper in his hands, he wonders what kind of people would do that. Suddenly, he notices a bully stepping on another student's papers. The bully laughs, rejoicing in the panic of the victim. Out of nowhere, John launches a jab, throwing the bully to the floor. He lowers himself to the bully's level and starts lecturing him. John calls him a disgrace to society for stepping on people weaker than him. The bully only laughs and prepares to attack. He shoots a laser at John, but John doesn't flinch and avoids the attack. John has had enough and starts beating the bully. However, upon seeing the bully's face full of wounds, John's memory flashes back. He sees a blonde guy covered in scars. This makes him stop, and he decides to run away. The bully seizes the opportunity and starts threatening John, acting as though John is escaping from him. In the distance, Eason watches the scene carefully. Elsewhere in the school, we see Remy holding the death pool. Tears fall from her face as she uses her electricity to burn the paper. As she walks away, one piece of the burned paper shows the name X-Static. This vigilante was murdered recently and is probably Remy's brother. Remy is now knocking on Sarah's dorm. Elaine opens the door, and Remy tells her she wants to talk with Serafina. Elaine lets her in and offers some tea, but Remy refuses, saying the visit will be quick. Sarah is in her room, reading a magazine, when she hears Remy knocking on the door. Remy walks in and notices the teddy bear. However, she also spots a circuit inside of it. Immediately, Remy apologizes to Sarah and thanks her for substituting as queen during her absence. Sarah tells her not to worry, saying she owed it to her. After all, Remy had taken the burden of being queen off her shoulders. Remy keeps glancing at the bear, enough that Sarah asks why she's staring so much. Remy points out the chip inside the bear, saying it's giving her bad vibes. Curious, they open the bear and examine the circuit. It turns out to be a tracking device. This makes Sarah remember the moment she won the bear. She begins to wonder if all the prizes from the level gauge booth contained trackers. Her mind races back to the booth sign, which mentioned that anyone with an ability level of 5+ would receive a prize. She deduces that someone is tracking high tiers. Remy advises Sarah to stay alert from now on. Even though they're strong, they're far from invincible. Meanwhile, back at school, Eason is trying to process all the information he's gathered about John so far. He's spoken with bullies who had encounters with him, including Rockboy, and the pair who gave John his welcome to Wellston. He even tried asking the school doctor, but apparently the doctor didn't know any John. All the information points to John being just a typical cripple. Yet Eason can't shake what he saw during the confrontation with the bully. John didn't act like a typical cripple in a fight. He showed confidence. Frustrated by the lack of answers, Eason decides to talk directly to John. John is surprised to see Eason talking to a cripple like him. Eisen mentions that the school newspaper wants to write an article about the life of a cripple and needs John's input to make it accurate. John shrugs and accepts, but says maybe later. His class is about to start. Eisen, thinking John is joking, presses on saying that the interview can't wait. Eisen takes John into a classroom and invites him to take a seat. John emphasizes that he was practically dragged there against his will. Ignoring the comment, Eisen insists he sit. Eisen explains that he's writing the article to bring attention to the struggles of low tiers and urges John to speak with full honesty, holding nothing back. John is surprised and happy at the comment, unaware of Eisen's true intentions. The interview begins with Eisen asking where John is from. John replies, New Boston, surprising Eisen since it's quite far from the school. Eisen then asks if that's where he went before transferring, but John corrects him, saying he was homeschooled and Wellston is his first real school. So, what made you switch? Eisen asks. John explains that he was curious to see what a real school was like, but his dad had been a bit protective of him, which delayed his chance until now. Eisen continues, asking how his experience at the school has been so far. John responds that it's been pretty bad, to say the least. When prompted to elaborate, John states that low tiers have no rights and must stay alert at all times since everywhere is a danger zone. John is surprised by how much Eisen is writing but doesn't realize that Eisen is actually doodling a silly scene of himself defeating Blake and impressing Remy. Eisen proceeds to ask how John manages to survive in such an environment. When John begins to answer, Eisen cuts him off, asking him to focus specifically on his own actions. John explains that he tries to walk on the edges of the hallways and stay quiet to avoid drawing attention to himself, though Eisen suspects he's lying. John eventually says the article should emphasize the importance of accepting people's differences. However, Eisen abruptly stands up, cutting John's speech short. Eisen reminds John that he still has many questions left to ask. He asks how John chose Wellston as his school. John replies that Wellston has one of the best academic programs in the nation. Feeling uneasy, John notices that the interview has shifted into more of an interrogation. Eisen comments that Wellston is also renowned for its high-tier abilities, making it a risky choice for a cripple like John. John admits that he assumed academics would be more valued than fighting, but Eisen dismisses this as short-sighted, although expected from someone inexperienced in such environments. Eisen then brings up John's father, striking a nerve. He asks if John's dad ever warned him about the challenges of the school. Eisen continues, suggesting that attending a closer school might have been a better first step instead of jumping into Wellston. He speculates that perhaps John's father had already tried that, but for some reason it didn't work out. John finally snaps. Grabbing Eisen by the shirt, he demands that he stop prying into his life. John reminds him that the purpose of the interview was to discuss his struggles as a low tier, not to be interrogated. With surprising strength, Eisen grabs John's arm and calmly remarks that John is very lucky to have Serafina on his side. Effortlessly, he removes John's hand from his shirt. Picking up his folder, Eisen thanks John for the information before leaving the empty classroom. It seems Eisen now plans to dig into John's past in New Boston. We find Eisen scrolling through pictures from New Boston High School. Suddenly, he spots John's picture among the files. Eisen abruptly stands from his chair, making a lot of noise and drawing attention. Blake, annoyed, tells him to keep it down to avoid getting kicked out of the library. Ignoring the comment, Eisen excitedly calls Blake over to show him his discovery. He points at John in the picture, but Blake looks confused, not even recognizing who John is. While Eisen keeps praising himself for uncovering something significant, Blake wonders why he should care about John. Frustrated, Blake asks why Eisen is stalking John. At this, Eisen suddenly remembers Arlo's strict warning to keep quiet. Snapping out of it, Eisen dismisses Blake's question with a curt, "That's none of your business," which irritates Blake further. Blake, who wasn't even interested at first, now feels insulted at being dragged into the matter, only to be dismissed. Later, Arlo and Eisen finally meet after some time apart. Arlo remarks that Eisen better have some valuable information after all this time. Confidently, Eisen takes out a file and begins his report. He explains that he's been observing John's behavior for several days, and John himself admitted that he was homeschooled and had no ability. Eisen notes that when John was asked about low tiers, he avoided speaking about himself, and his answers didn't align with his actual behavior. Initially, Eisen thought John was just clueless and acted that way out of ignorance. But when the topic of his past came up, John became extremely defensive and even attacked him. Eisen then presents Arlo with a picture of John and his class from 2 years ago. Arlo is surprised, remarking how unrecognizable John looks compared to now. Eisen continues, pointing out that John doesn't care if he bumps into someone and talks to high tiers without hesitation. He adds that if it weren't for John's claim of being a cripple, he would assume John had some kind of ability. Arlo listens intently, then surprises Eisen by tearing up the file he had just handed over. When Eisen offers to continue researching, Arlo stops him saying that he's done enough, and from that point he'll take care of John. Meanwhile, back at the Wellston dormitories, Elaine is doing some homework when her phone buzzes. She checks it and finds a new message from Arlo. Elaine seems happy as she picks up her phone, likely feeling something for Arlo. However, her expression darkens when Arlo asks her to inform the headmaster about what she found regarding Serafina. Later, over the school speaker, Sarah is called to the headmaster's office. Elaine waits outside the office, worried about what she's just done. Suddenly, the door opens, and Sarah appears, surprising Elaine. Sarah looks at her, but Elaine quickly avoids her gaze, feeling ashamed. Inside the office, Sarah is greeted by the headmaster, who invites her to sit. He asks her to relax, noting that even he's starting to feel nervous. Next, he introduces a woman present on behalf of the authorities. The headmaster tells Sarah that the woman is there to ask her a few simple questions. The interrogation begins, with the woman stressing that Sarah must be completely honest since any lie will be detected and could result in her expulsion from Wellston. The woman asks if Sarah has a book called Unordinary, to which Sarah replies affirmatively. "How long have you had the book?" the woman asks. Sarah answers that it's been about 12 days. Things begin to feel more serious as the woman asks how Sarah got the book. Sarah becomes nervous, not wanting to involve John. She starts analyzing the woman's power, and from her expression, she deduces that it must only be a lie detection ability, so her thoughts are safe. The woman, growing impatient, demands an answer. Sarah finally speaks, explaining that after leaving the mall, she felt like she was being followed by an invisible entity. After confronting it, she ran off with all her might. When she returned to her dormitory, the book was already in one of her shopping bags. The woman has been using her power while Sarah spoke and didn't detect any lies. She continues, asking if Sarah was with anyone when the incident happened. This question shakes Sarah once again. Before she can answer, the headmaster intervenes, stating that they should focus only on asking relevant questions, as their students' time is valuable. The woman presses on, asking where the book is now. Sarah responds that she destroyed it. "Did you read it?" the woman asks. Sarah answers yes. Finally, the woman asks what Sarah thought of the contents of the book. Sarah replies, saying that the message of the book was absurd. The woman seems relieved upon hearing that. She tells Sarah she can leave since she still needs to talk with the headmaster. Meanwhile, John is in class when his phone buzzes. It's a message from Sarah, asking him to meet her at the school gates. John rushes out and meets Sarah, who's carrying luggage. She explains that she was ratted out by Elaine and will have to leave the school for a month, heading back home. It seems the authorities were worried about the recent deaths of high tiers and wanted to ensure the book hadn't influenced her in any way. Sarah adds that John shouldn't worry because she managed to hide any trace of him from the lie detection woman. However, John scolds her for not taking the situation seriously. He tells her she should have told the truth, since the book was his. Sarah reassures him, saying the only thing that matters is that they both got through it relatively unscathed. John relaxes a little and ends up agreeing with Sarah. Sarah finally leaves, promising to text him once she gets home. John heads back into the school, unaware that Arlo is watching him with a menacing gaze. As John walks through the school, a familiar voice catches his attention. It's Rockboy again, still angry about their last encounter and eager to finish what he started with John. "Dude, you should really go to therapy or something." John rushes off, shouting that he's been mistaken for someone else. Rockboy chases him at full speed, while John tells him he shouldn't keep dwelling on the past and should just move on with his life. But John doesn't notice where he's heading, and soon finds himself at a dead end. Rockboy takes advantage of this, launching a powerful kick toward him. John manages to evade the kick, using the opportunity to push the bully and send him crashing to the ground. To make sure Rockboy stays down, John throws his notebooks at him before running off. John is running with all his might, knowing that if Rockboy catches up, he stands no chance. But in that moment, Rockboy leaps at him and grabs him from behind. Using his weight, Rockboy forces John to the ground and pins him there. With Sarah no longer around, Rockboy seizes the moment to take his revenge. In the infirmary, the doctor is surprised to see John back so soon. The doctor laughs, mentioning that it hasn't even been 4 hours yet, and John already has a black eye and a broken arm. He adds that he's in such a good mood because he had made a bet with another teacher about how long it would take John to break something, and he won. However, the doctor jokes that if John had taken longer, he would have strangled him himself. John rests on one of the infirmary beds, his phone buzzing beside him. He checks the screen. It's a message from Sarah. She tells him she just got off the plane, which brings a smile to his wounded face. After a while, John checks his arm and notices that it's completely healed. He compliments the doctor's tonics, saying they're getting better each time. With a menacing tone, the doctor thanks John for making him practice preparing the tonics every single day. John leaves the infirmary, his arm healed, but as he walks through the hall, 3 guys notice him. They start eyeing him with ill intentions. One of them, a purple-haired guy, shoves John against a wall, mocking his previously wounded appearance. The purple-haired guy mentions that there's a rumor going around school saying that Serafina has been suspended for a month. He then asks John to help them with target practice after school, since John clearly has nothing better to do. John notices a dark aura lurking just around the corner, and his attitude shifts immediately. He mocks the 3 guys, calling them weaklings who won't even be able to land a single hit on him. Irritated, the purple-haired guy demands that John watch his words. John, not caring, simply replies that the guy's breath reeks. Suddenly, a hand grabs the purple-haired bully, making him nervous. The doctor appears, threatening the bullies, mentioning that he has a date tonight. He warns them that if anyone makes him work overtime, he'll take care of them personally. John starts laughing softly, but the doctor's irritation grows. He adds that his threat applies to John as well. Finally, the doctor leaves, threatening them once more and saying he'll keep an eye on them. Once the doctor is out of sight, the purple-haired bully resumes his actions, calling John lucky for being saved by the doctor. He tells John that a cripple like him is nothing but a leech, feeding off others. The bullies finally leave, but John stands still, reflecting on what he just said. The words, "a leech who feeds off others," linger in his mind, making him think of the green-haired girl from his past. A dark expression settles on John's face as memories resurface. The scene shifts to Serafina's house. Upon arriving, Sarah greets her mother. Her mother simply calls her name from upstairs. In a flash, her mother comes down from the 2nd floor and immediately slaps Sarah. It seems her mother possesses some sort of time manipulation ability as well. She scolds Sarah, warning that if she keeps becoming more reckless, she'll end up as the failure her older sister was. Her mother orders her to remove her extensions and says they'll discuss a proper punishment when she gets back. Sarah stays still, her cheek swelling from the slap as she hears her mother leave. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.